Yeah. Hello.
Hello. How are you? Can you hear me okay? You're muted.
The hell? Look at you with your background.
Yeah, I know.
All
I have a
right.
whole bunch of them. This is the fun one.
Oh, yay! We got the fun one.
Otherwise they get boring and official.
Cool. So,
Yeah.
how's it going?
Ah, busy. See, there's my official boring one.
No,
But I don't like
no, don't say the boring one.
I tend to like, my personal jail cell over
Oh,
here.
I like that one. Maybe you should leave that one.
Oh, I'd get in trouble. But
Why?
because Graphic is a branding agency and they're very protective of their brand. Yeah, trust me, I only use that with the president or the so,
Oh man.
um,
Um, are you joining us for game night next week?
I am. It's on the calendar. I was actually just
Woohoo!
looking at it.
All
So
right. Ah, familiar face.
Hello, hello.
Hello, hello. How are you?
he,
Good.
Cool. Actually, just booked our next Tinker Talk, which I'm super excited about. Dun, dun, dun. I'll tell you guys since you're here. We're gonna have sort of someone who does behavioral science. She also does like a lot of HR stuff, but she's gonna actually do the Tinker Talk in workshop format around difficult conversations with the team. So that should be kind of cool because there's a lot of difficult conversations happening right now. And so that one should be a really cool one. So Brandon, if you want to come, well, you're always on the thing. You can always join us.
yeah. There's a
But
lot of difficult conversations going on.
yeah, there's like people are there's just a lot of churn right now with lots of people, lots of agencies. So
Interesting. Well,
it
yeah, I
is.
know we're recording, so I can't say.
You can leave it for game night. You can leave it- no recordings there.
Yeah, he's like, good thing I sold, okay?
Oh man, yeah, I can tell you that's my world right now. I feel like I eat, breathe, sleep, resourcing, utilization, and forecasting.
Oh God.
Dude, we're looking at these systems right now. There's one I got the quote was $100,000 per year, and I'm like,
Fuck. Have you looked at so Guillermo's team for utilization capacity and all of that stuff?
no,
They're looking at what was it? It's a new so what was the
Parallax.
one nah.
Oh, good.
What was the one that quoted you?
That was Parallax.
That was Parallax? No, not
Yeah,
Parallax.
so Parallax was founded by Tom O'Neill, who founded Nerdery, and
Mm-hmm.
so he founded Nerdery in 2012. Grew it
Mm-hmm.
to over 500 employees and over $70 million in revenue before he exited. So then he
Okay.
founded this company, and this is basically their secret sauce. Parallax. It's super cool.
Yeah.
We've looked at Forecast app, not
Mm-hmm.
not the Harvest Forecast,
The app, yeah.
the other one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We're leaning more that way.
Yeah. That's a good one. There was a company that was doing capacity and utilization, and they were like putting it in dashboard form and blah blah blah. I don't know if they actually, because then the pandemic hit and they were just starting. I think they were bootstrapping, so I don't know if they.
Interesting, because one of my dev partners was telling me yesterday, he goes, "Hey, we're working on this utilization product from another company. We can't talk about it." I was like, "Well, I need something." I said,
Yeah.
"Go ask them.
Yeah, I'm like, go get us
Go ask
stuff.
them. I'll be their first client."
Yeah, I'm like, do it. I will check on them. Also, check out planless.io.
Plan less.
Yeah. So they're supposed to kind of like disrupt resourcing.
Yeah, but see, the problem is I don't need a project management tool.
You just need the resourcing.
I need the resourcing. So it's got to
Okay.
layer on top of Jira. I mean, kind of give you an idea, like at any one given time, we have close to 3,000 active tasks.
Yeah. Okay. So let me check to see if the guys are still doing their jam with the resourcing,
Yeah, I would
and I will
love
let
to
you.
know. Yeah.
Because I know that theirs was strictly so what they did that was kind of cool, and then we'll actually start this Tinker Talk.
Yeah.
And I'll end my consulting for Brandon. So what they were doing that was kind of cool was so they're not only doing resourcing on the project management end, but they're also taking in your pipeline for resourcing, right? Because sometimes people only like, okay, here's our workflow, here's what we got, but then
Yeah.
what happens is also is like, depending on what your pipe is saying, then you have, let's say, like, oh shit, we're closing 2 deals. Now we've got to adjust our resourcing based on our pipe,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And that's what they were trying to nail. Really sophisticated stuff.
Interesting.
And so I don't know if they like. I know that they were dealing with. I think it was a Basecamp. They had a
Yeah.
couple of integrations. Jira should have been on their integration list. I don't know, but I'm sure
I
like
was gonna say
they'd
Jira
open up the
probably.
API.
Yeah, I was gonna say
Yeah.
Jira's probably on that list. So
Because since it's so bootstrappy, I'm sure like even if it's not on the list, like you can
yeah.
open up the API for way less than 100 rand. So, um, let
Yeah.
me give them
Yeah, please do. I have a big presentation to our partners next week where
Okay. All
so
right. Cool. Well, we have 9 people who said they were coming, beyond the 2 of us. So we had 7 others. I know some of them had
I
a
know Khan
couple.
wanted to be here.
I know Khan wanted to be here. Earl,
Alex can't be here. He's bummed. So I'm here
um,
on behalf of both of us.
yeah. I know Earl was gonna be here. Dennis might be here late. Jill might be here late. So we'll just get started. And
Yeah, that's fine.
if anything, they could always watch the replay. And worst comes to worst, we can have you come back.
Yeah.
So okay. So you know how these go, right?
Yeah.
I ask my questions for about 10 minutes. You
Yeah.
get everything out of your brain. And then
Does it make sense to give you like how this whole came about though?
sure.
All right. So there was a Slack conversation around the whole concept around numbers and reporting and transparency and how does everyone do it? And I kind of disrupted the cycle in some of those conversations and called crap on people in a nice way. And then all of a sudden, I probably within that same week, if I remember the number, it was like up to 6 people who had said, "Hey, can I pick your brain? Do you mind jumping on a call?" Which I would love to, but I was like, wow, 6 people, that's a lot. Why don't we just have this as a bigger forum? So that's when I reached out to you, Julia.
Cool. So, and if you have, visuals or whatever, I know we were talking
I
back
do.
and forth. Yeah, then maybe this might be the time to just kind of show
Got a
them and then
100-page PowerPoint deck. I'm ready to go.
yes, that's exactly what we wanted.
With
So
animations and everything.
woo. All right. So let me. So I'll just kind of ask a couple questions.
Yeah, go for it.
Because I think people know who you are and stuff like that.
Yep.
They know that you exited in December. You did the elusive exit. And we're all really excited for you.
Yeah.
And and you're one of us. Oh, one of the skilled tribers. As you're in there giving people shit still. In the Slacks.
Love it.
It was great. You still have to invoice Mark for that very beautiful offboarding.
Oh, did you love that?
Yeah, it was great. Did you see my emoji? I'm like, oh god.
I was actually almost tempted to not write it. I was like, okay, that might be just. I'm like, oh, who cares?
No. This is the community where you could, just let all the flags fly. And so this is really, created as a forum so you guys can ask questions. And then maybe you can answer all the questions that they were asking you since they're not here.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm like, where are they? Okay, so sometimes it just happens with scheduling and shit.
That's fine.
So I guess I have a question. How was the exit now that you're out of it? Like what was the good, the bad, and the oogly of the exit?
I'll tell you, like, I'll start with the ugly first. Get that one out of the way. And you may not, and no one may recall this, but if you remember your first day at a job, right? First day at a job, it's a little scary, a lot of anxiety, like, what's it going to be like? And then you get out of onboarding, if you had an onboarding, and the next few days, you kind of sit there, like, twiddling your thumbs going, what should I do? Like, well, what's my job, right? So you don't get that in an acquisition / merger, whatever you want to call it. I dove in like right in. And not only that, I had to close down a company, transition clients, and then jump into all the new things because now, I hate to say it, but you're a shiny object to the new people, to the new firm. Because they in that firm, they just had a lot of problems with digital. And so like I was this person and I kept saying like, guys, I am not the answer. I'm not the answer. And I was afraid of that. But people's behaviors are such. So my average calendar and week is just brutal. And not to like scare anybody, but I'll kind of give you an example of what that looks like. That's this week. And that was the week before. And that was the week before. It's the same thing. So the cool thing is the positive, I don't check my email. Literally. I don't open it. If I open it, it's like bad because I'll sit there. So I open the email about once a day, which has been really kind of a cool habit to learn. But it's been really hard in the sense of you're juggling a lot, you're balancing a lot. The other thing is when you're the outsider looking in, you see where problems exist, right? Like you go into your clients, you see problems in their businesses because you're like, oh my gosh. But when it's your own, you never see those things. And I think that's been a really fascinating thing is because when you're stuck deep running your business every day, you don't see your own problems. You kind of know, but you don't see them. So that's been interesting. And they've really taken advantage of that in a good way and said, hey, help us. And so I've been focused on resourcing utilization and optimization. And so, cool thing is I keep saying back in my scale up days, this is what I learned, and I literally am doing that. Even down to documentation, literally I sit and record videos and I send it up to a transcription service and it boom. And then I got somebody on the team who basically reads the narration and pulls out the 1, 2, 3s. It's been awesome. The good is, when you talk, here's the good thing it's been so great is I'm not alone anymore. I'm not at the top, but I went from like being like it to now I've got 6 other partners. So now I have to balance, like if I do something, I'm like, wait a minute, I need to check with this person, down the road. So you give up some freedoms at some side, but the ability to share the weight and the enormity of like your P&L, you got to make payroll, you got to, because now we're feeding 50 some families. That's a toll. So it's been great being able to share that and know that, for example, one of my partners heads up the BD department, and that's what he loves doing. So guess what? Go to BD, and there's somebody who heads up the UI department. There's somebody who heads up the brand strategy department. I don't have to worry about those. Those are over there. So that is definitely one of the niceties of it. And my dad asked me actually last week, and he goes, "Would you do it again?" I was like, "Yeah, I would in a heartbeat." So.
Very cool. All right. So, what is the biggest risk you've taken in
the last 3 months?
Well, I would say before. So, like, I would say like having the business, and then what's the biggest risk you took during exit?
Hiring you? No, okay.
Oh, it's a big risk.
Starting was always the big risk, and here's why I'd say that. I was not the entrepreneur who said I want to start a business. That was not me. I wanted to do my craft. I loved my craft. I to this day I love my craft. And there was a couple moments in history that I realized that I either need to go get a job or like kind of man up and grow the business up. Was really kind of the 2 scenarios. And so it was scary when I realized that I knew it, and kind of all in that time, we had some really bad employees. We had some cancers, like really bad cancers. We had a guy who literally, I was doing a code review and I'd never done them. And for some weird reason, I like, let me go review the code. And within the first 5 minutes, I found 43 F-bombs in the code, like pointed at the client, like I effing hate them stuff. Like it was bad.
Wow.
Should have fired him. I was a wuss. I didn't. Basically slapped him on his wrist. So at that, right after that moment, it just kept getting worse and worse in the business, and it was scary because I knew that I either needed to go get a job because I hated the company, I hated going to work, I hated everything about it, or I needed to fix it. And so, strange way to go about doing it. I was like, I'm gonna go get my master's because I want to understand how to go run a business. Not saying this for everybody, but I didn't have a business bone in me. And I will tell you, doing my master's was, and running a business and having run a business was the most rewarding experience I think I have ever had. It was scary doing it. And I remember being, I was about halfway through, and we were doing with a lot of HR stuff and culture stuff and the program. And I remember just literally going from classes all as a class on Thursday. I solely remember, and I went the next day, and I literally laid off 3 people, just like, got to get rid of them. And I was like, but I'll tell you again, it's another scary because I knew the moment that I did that, I was going to lose another 6 people as a domino effect. And I did. Within a matter of 3 months, I rotated all my entire staff except 1 person.
Wow.
And it was scary. So I mean, and it's one of those things, like, you take I would probably say to your question, like, every time you take a risk, it's going to be scary. And if it's not scary, then there's something wrong. Like there's something wrong instinctively about it. So if you're not scared, I think fear and scare, it shouldn't paralyze you, but it should help you to pause, think about the situation, figure it out, understand your options, understand your contingencies, and then act, but never let it paralyze you. So
Yeah, absolutely. How do you maintain good visibility with the team? Especially now, like, having gone, having a smaller team, and now
yeah.
how many reports do you have? Like, what does the visibility look like?
So I have 3 teams underneath me. I have the UX team, I have the technology team, and then I have the marketing team. And each team is, I think I have a total, I think in a total of that is 17, 18 people. And then under our dev team, we have a full slew of overseas contractors. And so part of it is just, I leverage Fridays. So I set up a rule when I moved over to graphic, and I said, on Fridays, no client work whatsoever. They are completely an internal day. One is a selfish reason, because I said, one, I want to be thinking about my weekend already, right? And so I want to spend it with people that I enjoy spending time with. So I literally, from 9 a.m. till 3, it's just one-on-one department meetings, and that's what it is, and I love it. I mean, I look forward to it every Monday. I'm like, God, I just got to get to Thursday. So, but that's how I keep visibility. We use a lot of Slack by departments, and we're constantly throwing like just little things to read, and I'm a reader, so I'm always trying to like make sure I engage in the Slacks and all that. So
Okay,
engage with people. So yep.
cool. And how do you make sure that performance is kept up?
Oh man, that's such a great question. You have to have the standards first. If people don't understand what's expected of them, they can't meet that level, right? And so, it's been interesting coming in and helping set those standards. I remember I had a really good mentor when I was first out of college who said, anytime you change a job as a leader, your job should not be about changing the your group, your team, or whatever. He goes, observe, understand it, understand all the nuances of it, but let people know from day one where you stand. And I really have taken that to heart everywhere that I've been in my career. Is I I want to be people's friends, right? And on our team, I want them to be the trust me, but at the same side, they know exactly where I stand. So if they know where I stand on everything, then they know, and also they're part of their job description, all that, then you hold them accountable to that. So
Cool. I'm gonna open up the floor. And have you guys ask questions, and I'll pop some questions. You guys know this. Just kind of unmute yourselves and go for it.
Let me ask you this to just
Mm-hmm.
jump in a little bit.
Yeah.
I know one of the questions was around how do we think about that transparency in the financial side.
Mm-hmm.
I can start there because
And
that
then
will create a lot of questions. So
do
let me do
it.
this. Let me share my screen. So I'm going to give you the past agency. So one of the things that we believed in a system called the Great Game of Business. It's used inside of the manufacturing space. It was around before like EOS and all those other ones out there, but you're going to see these big manufacturing companies like John Deere, Cat, they use it. And the whole premise of the program is it's really not a program, but it's teaching people financial literacy. And when they understand financial literacy, you're teaching them how to run a business. And it goes down as far as giving line item responsibility to people who one, both know financial literacy, but two, also know the area. So for example, I would give P&L line item responsibility to a designer who one would learn the financial literacy, but now was responsible for the buying behaviors of the graphic design software. That was all his, all day long. And
So
his job was to
would you
identify.
show us?
Yeah, I'll show you in just a
Yeah.
second. And so we would teach the literacy, and I've got two things I'll show you here in a second. But the way it started, and there's a whole lot more to the Great Game of Business, the system, but the basics of it is that understand how to read a P&L. What is a P&L? Like, and make it understandable to who they are in their lives, right? You talk about how they do it at home with their budgets and those type of things. The program gets more advanced, but the whole thing about the program is you shouldn't have to always monetarily reward people. And it was all about creating small gains where you're constantly improving efficiencies, and then they would get a reward, but it wasn't financial by any means. So one of the things that we would do as part of this is we would have monthly and quarterly um, reviews with our team. So we would do a budget meeting with them. So let me show you what some of these look like. So we would do a monthly one. Let me just kind of go through. Can you everybody see my screen okay? Awesome, cool. So we would, and this was from May 2019. So this is the monthly review. So what we did is we would say, okay, hey, this is our financial position. Our goal per month is we wanted to send $180,000 in invoices. We wanted to have a net cash basis of $10,000 and a burn rate of $150,000. Okay. And then what we would do is we would say, how many invoices were sent, what was our net income, what was our burn rate. And so we taught them what the difference is even between a accrual and cash and what is burn and what does that all mean. So you remember at this point they know, and we would teach this down to our interns. So when anybody's coming into business, part of their onboarding was we sat and talked with them about financial literacy and what did it mean. And then we would show those numbers year to date. In a sense. So this was May. I can't remember why that calculation's not right, but you can kind of see where everything was going. And then we would break up the business. And again, it was always really important to tell people, like, are we cash or is this accrual? And so we would go through and we broke our business up into, and this is one of the things I learned in the MBA world, was how to, think about service incomes or work streams. And so we had these 6 work streams that the business would flow in this way. Sorry, it keeps doing that. And again, we would show them that here's the total income, right? So you can see everything right there, super transparent. And then we'd go into utilization. So we'd talk about, okay, now let's talk about it. So our utilization, because the company was called 2120, was 70%. But our effective rate, and we always put the descriptions right underneath it because we wanted them to understand how much of our time was recorded was billable time, right? Our effective rate, the rate we are essentially billing to clients based on the hours that we physically record. Our goal is $90 per hour, meaning that takes into account your unbillable time and your billable time, right? Contractor hours. So we always wanted the number of hours all of our contractors are combined. So we wanted to have a goal of 400. A combined utilization rate of 90% and a combined effective rate of 110. So we always said, here's our goals, here's the measurement. So your last question, Julianne, was about how do people, meet their goals or whatever. It's telling them all the time. So you can see March, you can see right here, we hit 70%, great, but our effective rate was $87.44. And we would talk about it and say, well, it's because we had to write off work, right? That wasn't valuable to the clients. We had to write it off. And so calculating it, it was $87.44. Our contracted hours, we did 140. So you notice, man, we did really just piss poor. So our combined utilization rate was $84, which equated to $104. One of the things that was really important that we taught our people, though, is we said that combined effective rate, we know a red, yellow, a yellow level, and a green level. A red level basically says we are losing money every hour that we work. Yellow says that, hey, we're okay. We're just not making anything. We're just okay. And then green was, yeah, we're profitable, right? And so number one rule of the great game of business is the business has to be sound. That was the number one rule. And so if the business is not sound, you aren't sound. And we would tell people that. So they understood it. But you can see what happened in April. Same thing. We got up to 110. So man, we're doing awesome. And then May, man, we just crushed it. We were crushing it from that perspective. And so we'd walk through these numbers every month and we'd show them the years past. And then what we do is we go through the P&L and we show them the income line, we show them the COGS, income after COGS, the expense, and then the net profit. So we'd walk through this and you're like, wow, why did we lose $33,000? I was like, well, that was April. We actually had to write a big tax payment, so we'd tell the story and they would see this and they would see the numbers and they're saying, man, you're making money. That's awesome. And then we'd show them the gross margin by month, the net net margin, and then the year-to-date margin. So we would show all the data. So you could see our year-to-date at that point in May was 18%. So that's that area. Let me show you this part. And then so we do a monthly review and then we do a quarterly review. And I won't spend as much time on this. But literally we just say, hey, I don't remember when this one was. I think this was second quarter. Yeah. So the quarter wasn't, maybe it wasn't over. So the second quarter we had lost money, and that's again because of taxes. We were able to explain that. Again, what income did we create? Again, you saw this from the other sheet. Yeah. So yeah, this one was up to date. We showed them our cost of goods, meaning where's all of our money going out, right? P&L again, but at a quarterly level, quarter one, quarter two, year to date, how are we doing? And then we also then talked about what were our money saving moves. Like what did we do? So we negotiated with some design contractors. It was $700. Even if it was $1, we still put it out here. We wanted people to understand what our team is doing to help us save money, right? And so we had a basic rule. We always do a profit distribution. So our net goal was $47,000. Net profit goal is $47,000. Q2's net profit was $89,000. Was our goal met? Yes, it was. Net profit distribution will be distributed on 7/22 in your paycheck. And I'll give it to you this way. That year, the formulas for the profit, I can give you guys that another time. But I literally had a first year kid out of college making $45,000 a year. Her bonus check for that entire year was $7,000. Tell me she wasn't incentivized to work. And she said, the better I do, I know you do better. And she even said, I want you to do better. So that was our quarterly, but let me show you this. This was like this, we ran our entire business off this one spreadsheet and our team knew all of this. We would forecast every month. So this is our team. These are our independent contractors, and together, this was our forecasting line. Okay. I'm not going to focus there. I'll focus on here. This was our actuals. So we are always looking forward and we always looked behind us. We had our goals, but you could actually see the breakdown by quarter or by month. So in this month, we worked 596 hours, but of those 596 hours, we were only 337 hours that we billed for. So we were only 57% utilized. And I'll skip a couple of things. And we talked about our average rate. So our effective rate was $70. and the way that we structured our business is we knew that we would not be profitable if we worked that way. That's why we called it the contracted army. But then they worked 329 hours, but 100% of that was utilized. 100% of it was billable. So combined, 819 billing hours worked, 660. So we had a team utilization of 81%, at a billing rate of 125. Our effective rate was $101 a month. So, and then we could tell you by the end of the year exactly what we did, which was 98. So we were well into the positives. I think we were close to about, if I remember, 34% profitability. So as you can see, we show our team a lot.
And I guess my question is, what's the workflow in getting people sort of onboarded into this financial
Yeah.
literacy, right? And so, like you
Yeah.
said, okay, I do it during the onboarding. Like, when during the onboarding do you do this, right? Like, are you dedicating a day to this, an hour, several days, for different sort of
Yeah.
trainings for this? And then you said, okay, you're doing it once a month. Is this once a month part of like your regular staff meeting? Is
Oh,
it
yeah, good call.
separate? And then once a quarter, so does your monthly get replaced with the quarter, or is it separate, right? So like, what's the workflow for
Yeah, good
really
question.
onboarding, educating, and developing on the financial literacy so that people get it?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I will give you this one bit. People, it's a psychological bit. They if you best way I'll use the example of your mission, right? If you tell somebody your mission, after 21 days, the human brain forgets it. It's just a fact, right? So if you're not constantly talking about your mission within 21 days, people will forget it, right? So the same thing was true with financial literacy. So we have every Monday we'd have an all hands meeting, and we would always do a little like tidbit around financial literacy every week, maybe 5 minutes, just giving them a little like, hey, did you know? Did you know? Did you know? We would teach people how we'd bring in financial planners, stockbrokers, whatever. We wanted our team to like really understand how the business runs, right? And if they do, they're actually better employees because they feel like you're being transparent to them. And again, you could see what I showed you. You didn't say the salaries. It didn't say that my car was in there, or that I went out to dinner or what. It doesn't say that, right? But so in the onboarding process, it was my responsibility, and I took it very seriously. That it needed to be top down. So I would spend really just 30 minutes with people, and I'd walk through what is a P&L sheet, how to read a P&L sheet, and we'd have a collapsed one. It probably had maybe 10, 20 lines, and I'd walk through like, okay, this is income, and we'd always just use some type of example, right? I was like, okay, we're gonna make tacos, right? So you come in, you buy some tacos for me, and you spend $10, right? But that's the income, right? It's coming in the door. However, it cost me as a business $5 to make that taco, right? So 10 minus 5 equals 5, right? There's your net income. And then, however, it cost me another $2 to rent the space out of that taco. And so I take that out of the 5 and I got 3 left. So great, I'm at 3. So we talk about that and try to understand. And that principle in itself is simple, right? But people need to understand like, well, what are all the ways that we receive income? So I go through, here are the 6 ways that we receive income. Here are, here are 7 areas for our cost of goods, meaning how do we earn, like, what does it cost us to do that service? So it'd be the same 6 revenue lines plus salaries. That was the other one, plus your salary. And then we'd show that. And then I'd say the expenses, what's the expense line? And then I would just say, it's keeping the lights on, it's paying for the bookkeeper, because guess what? She's not billable, right? Little things like that. It's admin staff, it's education, it's lawyers, it's accountants, and we give it. And we just try to break it down really simple. So the onboarding was a 30-minute, that was my role. And it was the same thing over and over. And then when it got to because if you think about it, our weekly meetings, we had people at different places of literacy, right? So that's why probably about once a quarter, I'd go back and we'd talk about like, what is a P&L? And it was awesome because I would start getting our team to teach the P&L. and that made them stronger at it. And we'd give scenarios and stuff, and we'd point out like how people are managing a P&L line item. So we always, again, 5 minutes in every meeting every week. And then on the once a month, at the beginning of the month, actually it was the 15th of the month, we'd always do a budget meeting, 30 minutes. And I'd walk through that monthly chart. And at the end of the quarter, we would actually roll up and just do a quarterly look back. And then sometimes we'd have a couple extra slides just saying, hey, here's what happened last month. But a lot of the data was designed to be rolled up. So that was and we would tell them at that point, like, so we had a formula. It was actually a very simple formula in the sense of how people received their commission, basically, or their bonus. It was the business, if we met our goal, we would give 10% of the profit back to them. That's it. That was so if I made $100,000, I'd take $10,000 in that quarter and give it right back to them. That's how it was. And then it was, if I had 10 people divided by that. We did change it at one point, and it actually worked better. And what we made one other caveat in there is that you, as the person, had to hit your utilization goals. And so we had a group goal of 70, but each person had a goal at 60, because, life happens, all that stuff. But we wanted them to hit it. So if you hit the 60, you qualified to receive the bonus. That's all it meant. It meant you qualified to receive the bonus. And so guess what? I had somebody got a 59, didn't get it. So their portion of the pot, the rest of the team was like, yeah, baby, like I get more. So it became a really, like, people would get on each other like, dude, you better get your time in. Like, you had to put your time in as you were doing the work. So, and that was the other big thing. It's like, we train people not to put their time in at the end of the week, which I think is a bad idea of any business. You do it as you do the work, because we're human, we're going to forget.
So you're talking about tracking time as they work, right? Yeah, which we do. I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, we do. So our systems that we had in place is we use Jira as our task project management, and then we use EverHour, because EverHour was one of the few products out there that leveraged both retainers and projects, and it actually had a live timer that would run inside of Jira. So that was like a big deal for me.
What about your time?
I tracked my time too.
Yeah, and
because I'm just as billable as everybody else. So
right.
I didn't have, my goals weren't as much, but
I mean, and I'm sorry I came in late, but
that's all good.
Are you a digital ad agency or what?
So before the merger acquisition, we were a digital agency. And then I'm basically doing the same thing in this agency. They've been around for 42 years. So I have 42 years of habits to break. 42 years, 50 people, and a branding creative agency. So now we're basically we're full service. So I've got brand people and creative people who are like, I don't want to put time in anywhere. So
yeah,
and that's not true. It's the devs that are the worst.
Well, I'm really bad at that myself, but anyway, inspired to do so. I mean, I keep pretty accurate list of crap that I do, which is overwhelming.
Well, and I did, because there's actually, if you think about the mathematics of it, I ran a business by numbers. That was like the biggest game changer for me in the MBA program, is run your business by numbers. And when you run your business by numbers, it gives you levers to pull and to control the business, which is really interesting, because you think business, it's like, well, it's people and all that, and that's true. But when you start looking at measurements, it really makes life easy for you.
Well, everybody's in business to make money, and if you're not tracking,
yeah.
I mean, I loved what you just shared, and I really appreciate it.
Oh, absolutely.
That's another thing I'm gonna actually. I kind of did a little bit of that. We did our end of year team meeting, and I actually went through the P&Ls and stuff, and I had I have people in 6 countries, and so I had an overwhelming response from the numbers that I shared, and I kind of explained them and showed them, how the numbers weren't bad, and how they could turn very easily. And I mean,
Yeah.
everything you said, absolutely. I just need to do more of it, and I need to track
No,
more of it.
Chris, you don't need to do that. You need to have your bookkeeper do that. I didn't do that work.
Okay.
My bookkeeper did that work.
Okay.
Yeah, you have to empower them to do that work, because
My bookkeeper kind of sucks, I think.
get a new bookkeeper.
We have a resource for that.
But seriously, like we set up all the spreadsheets and everything. There's a book. I'll give you the name of the book because it basically it created the. Oh gosh, well, let me see if I can find it. Give me 2 seconds here. I can.
Yeah, and then Brandon, you can always send me resources afterwards, and I'll put it inside of Tinker Talks, because I have a couple of them that like I wanna see if you could share some of the spreadsheets, even if it's just blank, and or maybe even some of like templates for like what you showed the team, even if it's just blank, and then that way we can kind of throw them in there so people can reutilize them, if you're open to that. And so
I want that book, so don't forget.
Yeah, I have the book, so I'll.
Okay, and then you could throw it in the chat and I'll share it. So Brendan, I remember you once talking about like you had this team, like a Harvard team, or I forgot what it was. A Wharton team. Sorry. So we had a Wharton team that like did a bunch of like modeling and blah blah blah. Like, what was it?
Yes.
What was the process? What was the good, the bad, and the ugly of that? Like, share with us.
Yeah, that was really. I can actually pull the report and show it to you.
Yes,
this was hold on, it's coming, it's loading. Wharton. Let's see, Wharton. Let's see. Here it is. Let me pull it up. So this was a huge, man, I can tell you what, if in your community, if there's an MBA program, I mean, Wharton was a big one, right? But I'll tell you what, you can find a lot of MBA programs that will do this for you. And then also look for your local development council. So in Pennsylvania, it's SBDC. And then there's also, you may have a county one, you may have a state one, and then you could also have a local city one, like PDI or PDIP is Pennsylvania, or Philadelphia is SBDC is Pennsylvania, etc. But those development councils have so much resources, and they're wanting businesses to take it, but no one does. It so blows me away. There's even groups out there for like women-owned businesses where they'll actually give you a full advisory board. Like these are like legit CEOs, like they're your advisors. And I mean, there's so much out there. If you're white and a guy, sorry, there's nothing for us. So I'm kidding.
It's just you and me, Rebecca.
Yeah, exactly. So here's 40 pages. I mean, it was literally 40 pages of like, they modeled everything. They looked at other businesses in my industry. They compared how we stood up. Like, for example, they looked at freelancers. They looked at agencies bigger than us. And they said, well, where do you stack up? And like, for example, our online medium buying, man, we were 58. It was like, dude, we were crushing it. And there's like the balance of services. I mean, they looked at everything from our retainers. They broke it down by months, how we compared by months to everybody else. There's one thing I looked at this yesterday. It was really fascinating for me just to see where we first started. And this is where they introduced this concept of a work stream. And they took all the work that we did and they basically broke it up into these buckets. And we were able to understand then how each area was producing revenue. So you can see revenue for media for us was huge. This was done at the beginning of 2018.
And Brandon, and just for the people watching the recording, can you explain what a work stream is for some people that may not?
Yeah, a work stream is basically, it's like a service line. So it's like if you did, let's say you're building doing a branding project with website and creative, you would take the services and break them up into, in a sense, like a bucket. And it's a repeatable bucket that every month you could put your revenue into. So you could understand, like, one, it was what that bucket was. So you can see here's the actual revenue, but you could actually see like what percentage of your business is made up in those areas of work, or you could say, call them departments, really. So it's department, but then later what they do is they actually identified for us the profitability margin of each one of those buckets. And why was that important? Because at one point, if I take media out of this mix, what happened is projects was right up there. And and we really identified that projects and design and development were really one and the same. So if you do the math, it was 26%. If you take out media, it was a massive jump between everything else. But here's what we learned. It was only 4% profitable. That work stream was only 4% profitable, but yet my account management and my retainers were something like 40 and 50%. And I was like, whoa, what am I doing here? And they said, you're focused on the wrong thing. And so we literally stopped that month and we said, we will not take on another project. We ended up taking on project, but we said, okay, if we take it on, we have to work it differently. So that's when we started outsourcing. We did a lot of contracting. We're like, well, let's send it all outsource. And let's, we restructured the entire business because of the numbers. And this was just, I can tell you, like literally page after page after page of data, identifying where, like they even analyzed the cost of a contractor versus the cost of a full-time employee. Look at $41 an hour versus 68. Where would you do
pay for
that
this?
math?
Or
What?
did you pay for it, or did they just do
No,
it?
they do this for free. That's what I'm telling you. You got to go find your local development councils. They are there to help you. And they literally put these MBA students in, and they ran all the reports. You give them access to your data, and they do it. And they identified, like, look, here's, man, that was my profit margins. They look at every client. They actually identified these clients are losing you money. Get rid of them. These are your most profitable. These are your internet only. It was, as you can see, it's a lot of data, a lot of data. I can see, they looked at the P&L. They looked at the true cost of labor. It was eye-opening, to that point. And this was one of the things I will say, the NBA helped, but I will tell you, I had a number of things that happened. I did the NBA, and then the Wharton thing came right after the NBA, and one, I knew how valuable it was having gone through the MBA, but I will tell you, you don't need an MBA to go do that and learn your business. And that's where I learned that numbers really do control your business. You have to, even if you just go take a class in understanding the numbers of your business, man, it will change everything. I'll give you a prime example. Right now, I'm looking at one of my department heads, and she's 70% utilized, meaning 70% of her week, 30 hours, she's billable. And some weeks she's 80. So she's not leading her team, she's managing her team. So we did the calculation this week. I could go hire 3 people at an average rate. And those 3 people, and oh, actually, I forgot one thing. So we're also pushing off work because she's just too busy. And I'm like, why are we doing that? So we're deferring billables out into the future because we're not doing the work. So then the client's like, well, wait a minute, I'm not really getting what. So it's a client perspective issue. It's a deferment issue. And so we did the math. We calculated that I could hire 3 entry-level people, because that's the type of work she was working on, 3 entry-level people, and they will not only make up her salary, but it will actually make us 40% profitable. And we'll have additional bandwidth. So I'm going to go hire 3 people for her department. Just like that, because I did the math. And I was able to defend it. And now she's able to lead her team. She's able to be healthy mentally, and she's excited, right? Who doesn't love that?
Can you explain utilization? You're saying 70%, and then I just got confused by what you said.
Oh, no, that's fine. So if you think about like your week, you have 40 hours, right? 40 hours a week. Time is the one thing that we all have that doesn't change. We can't get more, we can't get less. So what you do is utilizes how much of that week is utilized for billable work. So on a 40-hour week, at 70% utilized, meaning we're billable, that's 32 hours. So 32 hours of her work, she's working on billable stuff. The other 6, it's non-billable work. That makes sense. And a department leader should not be that high. I mean, like my goal for me is like, I think I'm like 10%. So I'm like 4 hours a week. And I would tell you, anybody as an owner, it's the hardest thing in the world. And I know that's what scale up is all about. You got to get out. You got to get out of doing the crap. You
Well,
should
and
be
then what
leading
about this?
business.
Well, what about like, so you got 40 hours a week. How much of that is actually, I mean, how much of that are you giving 100% work effort? I mean, do you have numbers for that? I mean,
We're
obviously,
giving,
yeah, because nobody goes at 100% 40 hours a week.
no. So
Yeah.
so I was just giving you the simple of it. We
Uh-huh.
determine what's called cultural hours. So it looks like this. If you have 40 hours in a week, cultural hours are the times that your people are eating lunch, sitting in meetings, or no, sitting in like an all hands meeting, right? So, and then vacation times and all that. So we count that, and roughly it's 2 hours for a production person. So it's 38 hours that we know that they could work. So out of that, then I say a production person in our world is 70% billable. So so I can give it to you on 38 hours. If they're 70% billable, that's 26.6 hours of the week they should be billable. And that's their goal. And I tell people when we hire, you're in their job description, it says how much they have to be billable. So I tell them. Again, it goes back to that. If they don't know, they can't do it. So, I mean, I'm not running a charity.
You remember the line items? It's a charity line item. You're like, fuck. Brian.
Yeah, I have a few questions. First of all, Brandon, thank you so much for this and for
Oh
being
yeah.
so transparent with
Oh, absolutely.
your own stuff, and also for that incredible Slack conversation where like Alex and I like stopped everything and analyzed it.
Good.
So thank you.
Well,
This
I
is so
mean,
helpful.
I would challenge you. I mean, here's a cool thing. Go jump on YouTube, go find Great Game of Business, go check it out. I mean, if you really want to invest, you have to like hire a consultant and all that. We didn't do that. I read the book. I was like, dude, I can go fake it a little bit. I mean, it works.
Yeah, cool. And yeah, I've got this book that you just linked to. It's already in my cart, so I'll be reading that.
Yeah.
So
That book, by the way, is put out by a company called Summit CPA. They only serve agencies. And what the book is all about is this is what your CFO or your CPA should be giving you. So what we did is I had our bookkeeper read the book with our ops manager, and then they recreated all the spreadsheets that are in that book. So
awesome. Okay, cool. All right. So first of all, you talked about, so you get this profit number and then it's just like split up amongst team members. So
yeah.
I think you said it's just like an even split, or is there any nuance to like how, like, can you get more than someone else? Does an intern get the same amount as someone else?
No, we were, so it wasn't based on role. I think is what you're going after. It was based upon two goals. One, it's all about qualify. Did you qualify to receive it? The first one is, did the company meet our profit goals? Yes or no? Yes. Okay, great. Next. The second one is, did you hit your utilization goal as a person? Yes or no? Pretty simple. And here's why that's so important. If you didn't hit your goal, how can you expect to be a part of the bonus? It's not fair, right? I mean, it may sound childish, but it's not fair. So, and I, as an employee, let's say us five here, right? We're all working to a common goal. And Brian, let's say you slack off and you only give 20%. I would be pissed to know that I worked really hard to put money in your pockets. However, if you don't get it, that means more for me. I don't care if you slack. I really don't. But I'm going to make sure I'm good. And that was
So you're rooting for your coworkers to hit like 69% or whatever it is. It's just under.
Well,
cool.
I'm rooting for them. Well, here's the thing. It's a really interesting thing. I'm rooting for them to be successful. And here's why. Because if they're not, we're not going to hit the first goal.
Right.
Profitability goal. right? Because if they're slacking, it brings our effective utilization, effective rate down, and then we don't make profit. So now I'm pissed at you because you slacked. But then once we hit the first goal, I'm like, I don't care if you hit the second part because it's all good for me. So it was a win-win.
And then in the Slack, you were saying how like there might be role specific things you need to hit, like for a PM, like are their clients satisfied? So do you have that for every person? So it's company utilization, their utilization, and then they need to check off some boxes.
So right before the whole acquisition merger, we were going to add one other caveat because we were sitting there thinking about the utilization, and I'm a big believer in you control what you can control, right? So let's just say there's just not work, right? Whatever the reason, there's not work. But whose job is that? Let's say it's mine. My job is to make sure that you have work. Well, should you be penalized because there's not work for you? No, you shouldn't be. So you control what you own. So what we were switching to, and we had run the models to see, does it still work? Would it still work the same way? And it did, which is if, for example, if you're a PM, that your control is on time, on budget, on scope. Okay. You're a developer. What is the things that you control? The number of QA tickets. How many times did it come back and forth, right? You're an account manager. We call it crosstalk, meaning how many times did I have to go back and forth to the client to get an answer to help the designer finish the design? So if I as account manager, I'd go, oh, you know what? I should have been asking all 6 of these questions one time, and now I have one cross track versus back. And then same with the designer. It was all about the design. And then we told the designer the same thing, which was how many revisions do you go? So that do you touch it? And so the designer was always incentivized to make sure that the account manager was asking the right questions all the time. So
there's a lot of measurement here.
It is, but if you think about it, it's what you control, right? If you're the designer, you can control how many revisions it goes because I didn't ask the right questions. So I'm going to be well prepared, and I'm going to make sure I have my list of questions. And when the job comes back and I go, ooh, I'm not sure about this. What we were finding is our designers were making bad assumptions. So we said, stop assuming and just ask the question before you touch the design again. So we were looking, what we were quantifying, and Julie, you remember this, we were actually looking at how to quantify the number of touches. Remember you and I trying to figure that out?
We were like, and then we're like, okay, go into the project management system, and you're like, we can create a script for that.
Yeah, and we did. We wrote a script that goes how many touches back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's so we were testing it for probably about a year to make sure, like, can I quantify this data? It doesn't make sense. And we were about ready to pull that trigger. So.
And that
still have the script?
No.
Boo.
We were using Asana, and we ditched Asana.
So similarly, I think I can get at this. So like, I understand this for a manufacturing company. It's like, did you make the best widgets and they don't break down? But if you're doing anything like creative, or if you're trying to think about like quality, more qualitative things, how can you, if we're just incentivizing everyone to keep numbers down, keep utilization up, where does like quality or getting people to innovate come in?
I actually think it lives in the same place, because if you, and this is just philosophical, right? I deal with a lot of designers every single day. It's super creative, it's super fluid, but it's still manufacturing. Manufacturing by definition is creation of something from nothing. That's it. Or from a raw good. The raw good for a designer is I have my Photoshop open, right? And so for them, it's like, I had a conversation with one of my creative directors yesterday, and he was frustrated because it would go back and forth 15, 20 times. I'm like, well, you're a part of that conversation. Like, ask them better questions, arm them with more what you need to be successful, help them understand a better way. And I always use this statement. This is a really good one with your teams, is just say, I always say, well, how about we pilot this? Let's just do a little test, right? everyone's like, I'll do a little test, right? So I was telling them yesterday, I'm like, well, why don't we do a little pilot test? We got to redesign this one homepage. Why don't you do this? Go spend an extra hour. I want you to go, I want every question you could think through. And he's doing that right now. And so it's not a hard and fast, it's what worked for me. And I'm a very black and white person. And I do believe every job can, even though design is so much on art, there's still some science to it, right? The questions that are asked, how it's being asked, how it's being, like, I can tell you the amount of like documentation I brought over from 2120 to the new firm, like a project kickoff document, they create it from scratch every day. And I'm like, well, this is weird. So literally I dusted off, put their logo on, gave them an 8-page startup document. And now they're like, this is cool. That wasn't that hard.
Woohoo! Plug in for intake forms. Brandon, and you mentioned, right? And so with the design, and I just want to be conscientious because I know you're back to back because we have 2 minutes.
Yeah.
How do you go, okay, here's the design, here's where it meets your P&L, here's how you get incentivized, right? Like, how do you like go through that framework with a designer?
I'm not sure I'm following the question. Sorry.
So at the beginning of the chat, you're like, a designer, we show them exactly what part of the P&L is like they're being affected by. Yeah. So with a designer, because it's so esoteric, how do you do that?
Yeah. We talk about it in a couple different ways. I mean, and it's really anybody with that type of arts like role where, right, I don't have a 1 + 1 = 2. It may equal 20. There's no logic behind what they do. And we need that role, which is important. So when we were talking about line item responsibility, I actually do want to tap into the logic side of everybody, right? We all have it. We both have two sides of our brain for a reason. It's not to fill space. And if you think about it from that perspective, you could be the greatest designer in the world or writer or whatever. But at the same time, if I can help break down their job and say, well, guess what? You use software, right? You buy stock imagery, you buy fonts, you buy, like, look at all the things that you need so you can be a great designer. And when I think about that, or like video or whatever it may be, right? If you break down those things, what we were finding when we gave our designer, our director, the ability to do this, he found that their team was using 3 different design softwares, and they were buying monthly subscriptions for stock imagery. And he went back and he talked to the rep and he says, well, what happens if we just buy for the year? He saved 30% just like that. And then they cut out all these other subscriptions. So now they're managing their subscriptions well. So that's how I gave them back what they know. I don't want to tell them how to design or what software to design with. But what they were starting to do is they started building standards where all the designers use the same software. And they all use the same font house. And now they've got annual subscriptions and they were just smarter about it. So
absolutely, you give them more ownership. All right, well, I'm gonna let you go because I know you're back to back. I'm gonna slack you, so maybe we can grab some resources and add them to the Tinker Talks.
I'm actually excited about the meeting I'm going into, and you'll love this. I'm going into a meeting where literally I have 2 partners spending the next 2 hours on how to get stuff off my plate.
Yes,
that makes that me so type happy. Of meeting.
Yes, I love it. We've got to clear that calendar.
I will seriously, but I know I started off in the beginning saying that, like, a lot of people reached out, and I will, and I don't mind having conversations and going deeper. It just may be a couple weeks out, just because I'm out about.
No, absolutely. And if we want to have you back, maybe we could do a part 2 of this.
Oh yeah, it's fun. I love it.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much, Brandon.
So
and then
much.
for everybody else, ciao. See you on Wednesday. He's coming to game night. Rebecca's played with him in game night, so she knows all about that. And then next week, Brian, you might enjoy this. Rebecca, you too. Not that you deal with a big team, but I think listening you can translate to other things. We are having not this Friday, but the next Friday, someone, an HR badass come in who's really specializing in behavioral science with her master's and all her stuff. And we are going to be doing a workshop on difficult conversations with the team. So that's going to be really awesome. So Brian, you can let Alex know and I'll let the rest of the peeps know as well.
You've been killing it, Juliana. Thank you.
You're
She's
been
on
welcome.
fire.
I'm on fire. Yeah, no, because I think these are so valuable.
Yeah.
And I like to make them really relevant to what everyone's going through right now.
I had another question for Brandon. I don't know, maybe like because you've worked with him for a while.
Yeah,
like
maybe.
so all of that profit stuff, like that's for his team. Does he kind of have his own world of profit? Like that he's unrelated to that, right? He's already taking his own salary and bonus outside of that he's deciding and nobody else needs access to, or is he transparent about that too?
So what he showed, right, and you guys can watch it in the replay. So he shows kind of the top level of each thing, right? So he'll say something like, here's what we're doing with overhead, right? His salary will be included, but the line items are not, right? So you can think about this as like a collapsed P&L, right? So, and so like everything under a collapsed P&L, right? So you have your revenue, but then he's got his streams. Then you have like operating costs, everything under that. So he might break them out into, we have to kind of watch the things, and I'm going to see if he can give us some templates. So you guys don't have to recreate it off of the screen, because I know that's probably what you're gonna try to do. So
I
like
was screenshotting them.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, just give them to me. So so that way, and he had mentioned, he's like, they don't need to know everything that's going into operating costs, right? Like in terms of like administrative or reimbursements, or let's say meals and entertainment, right? Because he might be wining and dining clients, he might be writing off his, I don't know, traveling with his wife, who knows, right? But they do have to understand what the top lines are, right? So even though he has access to everything, right? And then obviously he's going to monitor his stuff so that it's decent and it looks good. But they don't need to know everything. They just need to know how it's functioning.
Right. And so that's just between him and his bookkeeper of what he's paying himself. But yeah, okay, that makes sense when you have a 42-person agency. But like for me and Alex, that like we can't be like, and then $300,000 or something are going to overhead costs, like when all we have is an office, a little office.
Exactly. So I mean,
harder to hide.
It is harder to hide, right? Obviously, but then you guys have to look at like, are you then running the business? Are you operating it effectively? Right? Because it's really different. And I find this for myself, right? Like once I started putting people on payroll, it's like when I was on payroll, right? When it was just me, I was like, fuck it, I'm traveling to 10 countries. This gets like, I don't care. Like, the business is taking care of it, like whatever, right? Like, and then once I started putting people on payroll, I was like, oh fuck, I can't operate like this, right? Like, and I can't have others see me operating like this right now, because I'm operating as like, as the business is funding my travels. I mean, that's literally what it was, being point blank. And now it's like, no, the business needs to fund its operation. So then you start getting a lot smarter around like, what are you doing? And then for you, Brian, like you guys might take quarterly distributions, so that you're still paying yourself like larger bonuses, but you're being proactive about that. And then, you don't necessarily have to be super transparent, but you're like, okay, this is where the money's going, so that it's still within an operating model.
Right. It's just harder to, like, if we're in a 3-person company, and we know the top line revenue, and that third person knows how much they're making, then they're going to know exactly how much I'm making. You can't really hide it.
Yeah. I mean, and the idea is like, there's also the conversations around that is like, hey, like we gave up salary for the last 3 years. We're kind of paying ourselves back. Right.
So we just have to be radically transparent.
Yeah, radically transparent, around like, we put in, right? You could say like we put in equity and now we're taking it back out, right? Because we need sushi. So it's an inside joke. We have an inside sushi joke. But again, it's about, it's like they're like, right, because like the transparency is like, well, you guys are making 300K a year and I'm making 50. That's not the case, right? I'm making this like totally, and you could be like, yeah, well, we were making literally 15 for the last 4 years, and now we're basically
Right.
paying ourselves back, right?
Right. And for
So,
what it's worth, this person is going to be making close to what we're making anyway.
and for what it's worth, a lot of owners who are in the seven figures make less on a salary basis than some of their top employees for leadership, right? But you make up for it in terms of distributions, right? So it's like, all right, well, we made this fucking profit, I'm taking a piece of this pie, right? Because one of the things that he mentioned is out of the profitability, he gave 10% for incentives, right? Which means that 90%, right, goes back into the business and then also back into his pocket for distributions. He didn't talk about it, but I'm more than certain that that was what was happening with the other 90%, right? So then you can be proactive. Okay, what are we doing with the other 90% of profit? How much of it are we reinvesting? How much are we paying back debt? How much are we also, taking home? Right. And if you're making a boku profits, that 10% is really awesome. If you're not, right, then you're not really incentivizing your employees as much.
Makes sense.
Right. So it's like there's a lot of margin within the margins to kind of play with. So I think that was pretty fascinating.
I thought it was interesting. He's like, run your business is run by numbers. And I know you've like said that too. And I'm always like, no, it's my talent, it's my work. And I'm like, oh, it's by numbers. It is.
I mean, and here's the deal. Like, and this is one of the reasons why I love these Tinker Talks is like, we are almost in a relationship now with some of our long-term clients, both of you included, where it's starting feeling like a marriage, like I keep telling you guys stuff, but like I'm like you're not listening. Let me bring in this other third-party person that you're gonna listen to, right? And then all of a sudden, I feel like the wife in like a 10-year marriage, and I'm like, I've been saying this for so long, and like but I bring you a shiny object to say it, and it's like, oh my god, it makes so much sense. I'm like, yeah, no shit, this is by design.
Totally.
Like I get it. I know my place. But I think it's really cool to see how other people are doing things, which is why these Tinker Talks are so effective.
Yeah. It makes you think in a totally different, like, new way. And I have a question for you really quick. The Grain app that you're using, are you taking all of your recordings and then does it automatically just save them in the app?
Oh, Grain app is so beautiful. I can't even tell you. It's my favorite app of the year. All right. Grain is, so not only will it save the recordings, I can annotate during this. So here, I'll give you a simple workflow. He's talking, right? I get like this little note thing with the Grain app. So I'm literally demarking and annotating the topics that he's talking about. My team will then take the notes, that becomes sort of the topics for the Tinker Talk. So like they know exactly what topics to do. They're time stamped. And if I wanted to give a snippet, let's say to Com, and be like, hey Com, you missed this, I literally go to the recording. I can search because it has an automated transcription, highlight the piece, clip it, and then send it to him.
Oh my God.
So, fun fact, for October, what I'm going to do is I'm still talking to the Grain app people because I'm like this with them because I'm so in love with their app.
You're the spokesperson, like
yeah, I am. I'm like, I love their app. And so I'm gonna, see if I can do a partnership with them. But one of the things that I want to do is we're gonna be doing a client onboarding challenge in the Slack. So Rebecca, you're in the Slacks, and the person to win the challenge, I'm gonna give them 6 months of unlimited Grain app. Because I'm so in love with this thing.
Nice.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. Because when I'm recording my class, like I'm like, oh, that was really good, but I don't even know where it is. And it's just like,
so
looks like my closet.
So you can use it to record your class. I mean, and there's a free, I think for free, you get like 15 recordings a month, but I do like, I don't know how many. So there's like a free one, there's like a medium one, and then there's an unlimited one. But I'm going to use it to start doing our trainings. So I need the unlimited because you can also upload video.
Oh my God.
Cool. Yeah.
It's dope. All right. With that, I'm gonna leave you guys. Have an
you.
awesome Friday and a weekend. Hopefully, I will see you with Brandon in game
Game
night.
night.
Yeah.
Good night.
All
Cool.
right.
Awesome. Thank you
Bye,
so
guys.
much, Juliana.
You're very welcome. Ciao.
Bye, guys.
Bye.